Recently, the Cubicle has released many new custom cubes in their line of Angstrom products. These cubes are all modified in various ways to maximize the performance of the puzzle for speedcubers. Personally, I think that these cubes have turned out fantastically, and that seems to be the general consensus from people who have tried them out. However, there are a few instances in which these cubes haven't quite lived up to my expectations, so given the high price point of most Angstrom products, let's take a look at some of the Angstrom cubes released so far, and see whether you should buy them or not. Currently, I own 6 Angstrom puzzles ranging from 3x3s to 5x5s. My aim in this video is to give a general overview of each cube in comparison to its standard version, and then draw overall conclusions about the effectiveness of Angstrom in general. Hopefully by the end of this video you'll have the knowledge necessary to know which of these cubes are worth purchasing, and to be able to determine whether you should buy future Angstrom releases. Anyway, let's start out by taking a look at the various Angstrom 3x3s that I've received from the Cubicle. First, we have the Angstrom GTS2M. I was a fan of both magnetic GTS2 variants as soon as I received them, but they were never really contenders for my main two-handed speed cube. The turning was nice and the cube performed well, but it always seemed a little bit uncontrollable for me, and it had a slight blockiness to it that I didn't enjoy either. When I unboxed the Angstrom GTS2M, the blocky smoothness of the original cube was replaced by a soft, buttery smoothness in the Angstrom version. Additionally, the Angstrom version didn't have any issues with uncontrollability, and I immediately made it one of my mains. So in the case of the GTS2M, the special lubrication applied in order to make it an Angstrom cube managed to drastically improve an already amazing cube. More recently, I received a second Angstrom GTS2M. However, this one was different. Instead of just having the Angstrom lubricants added to this cube, this one was also coated with some sort of polymer mixture. According to the product page on the Cubicle, this polymer was infused into the plastic of the cube, and you can definitely notice the change when you turn it. It's extraordinarily fast, and the friction between the pieces is almost non-existent. While this may sound nice, and it very well might fit your turning style, for me this wasn't what I wanted in a cube. It made the cube much faster, which contributed to the slight uncontrollability problem that the original GTS2M had. Additionally, the polymer coating made the plastic feel very hard, which again isn't what I look for in a cube. Finally, although I could tell that the cube had lube in it, the turning still felt very dry and stayed that way even after adding a considerable amount of Gravitas and Dignitas, the two main Angstrom lubes. I've also noticed that my times aren't quite as fast on this cube as they are on the first Angstrom GTS2M that I received. So at least in this specific case, the polymer coating didn't live up to my expectations. Now let's take a look at another 3x3, the Gan SM. Gan 3x3s kept getting smoother and smoother as new models came out, and I thought that the smoothness had reached a peak when the SM came out. The SM is so smooth that I figured nothing could make it feel any nicer to turn. However, the Angstrom SM is even smoother and is definitely the smoothest and best feeling 3x3 that I've ever tried. Other than the change in feeling, there isn't much else that's changed with the cube, however. The only other slight improvement is that the cube feels a tiny bit more put together and stable than its standard version, but I can't seem to figure out why that is. Either way, the addition of the Angstrom loops to this cube certainly make it more pleasant to solve on, so it could absolutely be worth buying, especially if you like Gan cubes. And the last Angstrom 3x3 that I own is the Angstrom Valk M, and honestly there isn't much that I can say about this cube. I mean, it's a solid cube for sure, and I can get really good times on it, but it doesn't really differ much at all from a normal Valk M. The only slight difference is that the turning feels more consistent, but other than that, nothing's really changed. Moving on from 3x3s, another Angstrom cube that I received recently was the Angstrom WuQue M 4x4. Now, from what I've heard, others who have tried this cube seem to enjoy solving it even more than their normal WuQue M, so it's very possible that you will too. However, personally, I'm not really that big of a fan of this cube, because in my opinion, it's just too slow. The WuQue M was already a little slow for my liking, so the addition of different lubes in this cube really just led to slowing it down even more. The cube does come with some complimentary DNM37, and I tried adding some of that to speed it up, but it didn't make this cube fast enough to be my main. I wouldn't recommend spending the extra $13 to get the Angstrom version of this cube in particular, because even if you do prefer the feel of the Angstrom WuQue, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But I mean, if you absolutely love 4x4 as an event, it may just be worth the buy simply to find out which cube works better for you, because when it comes to your favorite event, you definitely want the best cube possible. Finally, we have the Angstrom WuShuang M. Now, contrary to the last cube, when the Angstrom service slowed the cube down, my Angstrom WuShuang M is a lot faster than my normal Cubicle Labs WuShuang M. In all honesty, I haven't completely decided which one I'm going to use as my main yet, but I think I'm leaning towards the Angstrom version. Part of the reason for that is the fact that I think my Angstrom 5x5 just has more room to grow, given that I haven't done nearly as many solves to break it in. If you're trying to decide which one you'd like better, I would go with the normal WuShuang if you want a more controllable 5x5, and go with the Angstrom version if you want a 5x5 that's faster and has a smoother feel. Now that I've given a small overview of the differences between each Angstrom cube and their standard counterparts, I'm going to go over the general effects of the Angstrom treatment on each cube. If you check out the product pages of each Angstrom cube available on thecubicle.us, you'll see exactly what lubes they use in each cube, but in general, they use some mixture of Angstrom Gravitas, Dignitas, and DNM37 on the pieces, and use either Lubical Black or Traxxas on the core. So in my experience, the Angstrom treatment doesn't ever make a 3x3 worse. Even if an Angstrom cube seems a bit sluggish out of the box, the Angstrom lubes will break in really quickly, so I haven't had any problems with Angstrom 3x3s being too slow. The reason that I think the Angstrom WuQue M didn't turn out very well is that the cube isn't really made to handle lube as well as other cubes. It's just a slower cube in general, and something about the plastic or the cube's design, I don't really know to be honest, makes it prone to feeling sluggish if you don't put exactly the right type and amount of lube in exactly the right places, which is really difficult. The WuShuang M, however, didn't have this problem and felt a lot more customizable from the beginning, so it makes sense that the Angstrom version turned out very well for the 5x5. So overall, if you're deciding whether or not to buy an Angstrom product, ask yourself what you want in a cube. If you want perfectly smooth and consistent turning in your 3x3, Angstrom is definitely the way to go. If you want your cube to be a little bit more forgiving during solves, Angstrom can also help with this. But if you're going to get an Angstrom 4x4 or any other sort of big cube, at the very least be prepared to do gratuitous amounts of solves to fully break it in. You're not guaranteed to be satisfied immediately, and you might have to do a little bit of tweaking before the cube fits your turning style perfectly. Of course, another option is buying the Angstrom lubes and applying them yourself. That way, you get to have control of how much of each lube is being applied to your cube, and can change up the speed to be exactly as fast as you want it. The one disadvantage to that, however, is that you don't get the expertise of the cubicle employees applying the lube for you. But that decision is ultimately up to you. So that's it for this video on the Angstrom products from thecubicle.us. I really like the fact that the Cubicle is experimenting with new scientific innovations in their cubes, and I think that so far they've turned out very well. If you'd like to buy any of the cubes mentioned in this video, Angstrom or standard, the links can be found in the description below. The links to all of the Angstrom lubing products will also be in the description if you'd like to purchase those instead. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!